Chapter 10 discusses single row functions. I'm going to deliberately break the Chapter 10 lecture into separate mini lectures based on different types of functions. I'll try to hit what I feel are the more commonly used functions. The function is a predefined block of code that accepts arguments. Think of a function kind of as a food processor. The functions are written with parentheses. Think of the parentheses as the bowl or the pitcher of a food processor. The arguments are the data that you put into the function, like you would put the different types of foods into the food processor. The function does its processing. When you turn the food processor on, it mixes up the food, and then you pour out something that looks different than what you put in. A function in computer programming and database, you put in different pieces of data, and that could be one piece of data or multiple pieces of data. They're called arguments. You put them into the function in the parentheses. The function does its processing and then returns a result that is different than what you put in. There are single row functions, which are discussed in Chapter 10, and multiple row functions discussed in Chapter 11. The difference is a single row function, you use your function to process one record at a time, and you return a result from each record processed. So if you process 10 records, you get 10 results. Multiple row function is used on a group of records. So you might process 10 records and get one result after processing those 10 records. That's the difference between a single row function and a multi-row function. Again, I'm going to try to break these Chapter 10 lectures into different function types. For example, this first one is going to do character functions. It's a little bit redundant because case conversion functions is character manipulation. So the first two types are functions used on character data types. The first lecture will be based specifically on character data type function. The second part of the lecture will be on numeric functions, and depending on how much time I have, maybe I'll put the numeric and date functions together. But the numeric functions are used on numeric data type. Things that you would do with numbers, like round the number up or round it down. Date functions are used on date data types. You can count the months between two different dates, or determine what is the current date, things like that. Functions that would be processed on date data types. The regular expressions and the other functions, again, I might combine these into one lecture. I'm not going to go into detail on any of these functions in the lecture. Alright, let's get started with the case conversion function. Case conversion functions are pretty simple. It simply reads the character data in a column or a character string that you give it, and it's going to convert their case, convert to all uppercase, convert to all lowercase, or to what's called INITCAP, where the first character is capitalized, the remaining characters are in lowercase. Case conversion functions can be used in the select clause or in the where clause. In the select clause, they alter the appearance of the data in the results. What this is saying is it's going to convert the data. If you use it in the select clause, it's going to convert it only for the results. It's not actually changing the data in the table. So when the results are displayed, the results will be displayed in the case for which you converted using the function. If you use the lower function, it's going to convert the data to all lowercase and display that in the results. If you use a case function in the where clause, it is so that you can use it for comparison. So the results are going to display the data in whatever case they were stored in the database. But in the where clause, you simply say, I want to compare the data in the database to this string, this character string, and again, that's only for comparison. However the data displays in the results would be how that data is stored in the database. Remember, I've said this since early on in the class, that the data in the database is case sensitive. SQL is not case sensitive, but the data is. Here's an example of the lower function. It converts characters to lowercase letters. This example is using the lower function in the where clause, so it's for comparison only. We're selecting the first name and the last name from the customers table, and they simply want to say, I'm looking for the last name that is the same as Nelson when that last name is converted to lowercase. So they display the results. Notice that the results are in all uppercase, but yet we use the lowercase function. That's because the data itself in the table is all uppercase. If we would have said where last name equals Nelson in lowercase, not using the lower function, we would have returned no results because the data is case sensitive. So in the where clause, by using that lower function, we are saying take the data that's in the last name field, convert it to lowercase, and then compare it to this string. If we get a match, display the data. And this is the data displayed. So again, this tells me that this particular record, Becca Nelson, was stored in the table in all uppercase. The upper function does just the opposite. It converts characters to uppercase letters. You use it in the exact same way as the lower function, of upper function. But it is used the exact same way. Remember, if it's in the select clause, it's going to display the results in uppercase. If it's in the where clause, it's used for comparison purposes only. Now let's look at the INITCAP function. The INITCAP function here does use the INITCAP function in the select clause. Again, it's used the exact same way as the upper and lower. It's just that the results are the first letter is capitalized, all remaining letter are lowercase. Since it's being used in the select clause, that means the results are going to be converted. So we see Becca Nelson in this instance, instead of in all uppercase, it's in INITCAP case.